Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Davy Wavy, here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 5 of What If Himawari Was Older? I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. The sun was rising on the village hidden in the leaves. Every ninja was off on their own, each doing any of their many different assigned tasks. On training ground number 7, our young heroine was standing. She held her hands together in front of her, clasped around what seemed to be a big rubber ball. Her brow was dripping with sweat as she continually tried her heart out. Himawari had been working non-stop for a few days now. After she'd gotten through the first step, it was as if she had run headfirst into a large brick wall. Now, days later, and she was still where she had started. This really didn't help the horrible sense of urgency she had, especially as the Chunin exams rapidly approached and Himawari had yet to manage to form even a basic rasengan to show her possible future teacher. No matter what she did, she couldn't force enough energy to spiral within the rubber ball to burst it open. All of Himawari's previous training was almost entirely based on chakra control. The ability to manipulate a person's living energy with pinpoint accuracy was part of what made the Hyuga clan so famous. But now, as she saw herself obligated to be forceful in her approach, she felt as if everything she'd ever learned was failing her. It wasn't like she was unable to do so. She was also an Uzumaki after all. And while she may not have the chakra reserves of her father, she still held more chakra than quite literally most residents of her native village. The problem lay in her mentality. She was too meek and soft, so her chakra responded as such. After taking a break, she once again took up her training. She planted her feet correctly below her, engaging her hips and holding her balance in the right way. She held the rubber ball in between her palms. Her arms were outstretched in front of her. She was careful to relax her shoulders and breathe out as many of her worries as she could. When she finally felt herself relaxed, she closed her eyes. When Himawari opened her eyes had gone completely white. The veins on her face surrounding her eyes bulged, giving her face an extreme look. Whenever Himawari activated her Byakugan, her visual prowess was augmented. She could see chakra, how it flowed and moved through her body. Himawari would will her chakra to move, causing it to flow into the rubber ball in her hands. She felt hypnotized as she watched the many spirals that formed within the ball. The ball itself was stretching as the force created by the spirals pushed in every possible direction. Yet no matter what, the ball simply would not pop. Himawari couldn't figure out what exactly was holding her back. She was trying, forcing herself to finally finish this step of the rasengan. She was so concentrated she didn't even notice as her teacher and leader, Konohamaru, landed right next to her. Her mind was only on this. She had to make her dad proud. That pushed her as far as possible. He did so much, not only for herself, but because she knew her dad was so busy, she wanted to one day be strong enough to let him rest. She had to do it. And that's when she heard it. Himawari blinked, watching the ball lose its air until she was left simply holding a useless piece of rubber. There was a second where she couldn't help but be silent. She finally came to terms with what had just happened. She let out a yell and threw her hands up in the air. Yes! Finally! I did it! Himawari was jumping up and down excitedly. She had a wide smile on her face. This went out the window when she heard Konohamaru, who'd been there the whole time, speak up to congratulate her. Well done, Himawari. Seeing you so excited is quite surreal, but I can't say I blame you. Making a rasengan is exhilarating, isn't it? Himawari couldn't bring herself to say anything, her face having gone red with embarrassment. She cleared her throat and regarded her teacher with a small wave. Oh, hello there, Konohamaru-sensei. What brings you here? Konohamaru rolled his eyes, pulling out a bag full of balloons which were simply filled with air. He answered in a deadpan way. Considering what I'm teaching you, take a guess. Himawari looked even more embarrassed. Fair enough. What's next, sensei? Konohamaru gave her one of the less resistant balloons. She held it and bounced it up and down between her hands, squeezing it softly. It sadly popped in her hand, leading her to be confused and look up at Konohamaru. This part should be more up your alley. You have to do the same as the last two steps, but without popping the balloon. It's all about control, and not using as much power. Himawari had a grim look. I'm going to hit you. On the other side of the village hidden in the leaves, another ninja stood across from Naruto Uzumaki, or at least what seemed like him. In reality, this Naruto was actually a shadow clone. Sarada had taken up Naruto's suggestions, and he'd convinced her to learn from him. Naruto held his hand in front of him, with his palm pointed in front of him. He finally nodded his head. From her side, Sarada sprung to action. She ran forwards, her hands and feet being covered in chakra. She struck out, moving up and throwing a straight jab with her right hand. Naruto was expecting as much. He took a half step forwards and moved his outstretched hand. Just like that, Sarada's blow was caught. She moved to retaliate, kicking upwards with her left leg. This hit was also caught by Naruto, with as much ease as he'd done last time. As the hit landed, Naruto gripped both of Sarada's limbs. Then, with masterful dexterity, he flipped her around and dropped her. Sarada would land on her back and on the floor. Sarada grunted and breathed a little heavy. She then jumped back up and took her stance once again. She closed her eyes, opening them once again to reveal her eyes had gone blood red. Her Sharingan spun, and she once again ran at Naruto. Sarada jumped and tried to deliver a falling kick to Naruto's chest. When he moved to intercept her attack, she kicked herself up with her other foot. This time, she spun her body and aimed a kick at the side of Naruto's face. Naruto was a little surprised. His eyes widened and he leaned back. The kick missed his face by less than an inch. Sarada's attack whiffed entirely, and she panicked as Naruto was holding her other foot, so Sarada landed on her back once again. She rolled over onto her stomach, taking a moment to shake off the bad tumble. But before she could do so, she noticed Naruto had approached and sat next to her. He had a simple yet genuine smile as he patted her shoulder. Sarada flipped back over and sat next to the Hokage. There was an odd silence which left Sarada to her thoughts. She'd had high expectations of training under Naruto. It was the Hokage after all. She had filled her head with delusions and thoughts of learning jutsus and techniques from her own personal hero. But from the moment they started, she had realized it was just wishful thinking. From the moment it started, she'd been put through almost exclusively physical training. And it wasn't like she was ungrateful, she felt herself grow stronger, but it still felt a little disappointing, especially after she caught wind of the fact that Konohamaru was teaching Himawari privately. As one could expect, she was quite annoyed at that fact. Sarada stood back up, stretching out and taking a deep breath. "Naruto, sir, let's continue." Naruto would stand back up as well. He fixed his jacket and walked up to his position across from Sarada. He put his hands up and waved at her to take up her position. "You seem really into this. What exactly is pushing you, Sarada?" Sarada was stomped for a few moments, but she quickly recovered, clearing her throat and taking up her stance. "Well, I want to be the Hokage someday. The best Hokage there ever was. So I have to beat the Chunin exams. And after that, nothing will stop me from reaching the top." Naruto smiled warmly. He remembered his own childhood. It made him want to help Sarada, even if he barely had time. "Very well. Let's keep going. I'll be holding you to your word. Believe it." "Come on, once more!" Himawari held her hands in front of her and closed her eyes. It was now the end of her day, and the sun was going down. She had spent all day working on the final step. With a deep breath, she worked to spin her chakra into a rasengan, all inside an air-filled balloon. She concentrated and stayed calm, letting her chakra spin with power, but with control. It was almost painful as she was tired, but she persevered, hearing the noises of the technique and waiting for the inevitable popping sound. But it never came. She peeped the balloon with one of her eyes, only to gasp in excitement. She'd done it! She could feel it spinning and had the brightest of smiles on her face. She moved it around, watching it pop, but it didn't matter. In Himawari's hands, there was a perfectly formed rasengan. She was so excited that she screamed and hit the nearest rock with it. The rock crumbled and shattered, exploding under the attack. Himawari laughed and ran off. She couldn't wait to show it off to Sasuke. If it all went well, nobody would be able to stop Himawari from getting to the Chunin exams and outshining anyone and everyone there. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in part 5 of this What If. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and have a great day.